passive job seekers. The most successful recruiting teams in the world are professional sports teams, right? They're amazing. I mean, people are lining up like, I want to be on the team. I want to be on the team. And most people don't make the cut. Like, we know that there's a very slim chance you're going to play professional sports. But what's the one thing that every professional sports team has? A bench. Because you never know when a guy's going to get sick, get injured, something worse, end up in jail, like whatever. You never know. So what do? They have a bench. And what do they do with those people on the bench? They train them. They coach them. They teach them. And then when they call someone up from the bench, guess what? They're ready to go. And we can do the exact same thing. We actually call it the bench in our process. Building a bench of passive job seekers. Those people that are like, that company looks kind of cool. Maybe I should check it out, but I'm not ready to apply.
Running a home service business is hard. So how is it that some people make it look so easy? Well, we'll tell you. This is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. It's always good to hear the wins that successful contractors have. But have you ever thought that the best advice would be to hear about the speed bumps they encountered, the mistakes they've made along the way? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want you to be successful and avoid the mistakes others have made. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Now your host, Justin Deese.
Welcome to Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Today we've got a special guest, and part of the mission of the podcast is really just to help business owners move the needle and get better and improve. And today's topic we're talking about is on a lot of people's mind, which is hiring and recruiting and retention and all the things. Because in the home service space, if you don't have employees to go run the calls, you could be in a little bit of trouble. So today we got Ryan Englin joining us, and Ryan is the author of a book called Hire Better People Faster. And he also has the podcast of Titans of the Trades, and he owns a business called Core Matters. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what Core Matters does and how they help the trades and how he got started in his journey. So Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Justin, thank you for having me here. And I am going to add one more thing. Hopefully they walk away with one or two things that they can go do to help solve this problem. So
I like it.
I love giving them some tactical things that they're going to be able to walk away from and say, let's go see if that works.
I like it. So Ryan, how did you get started in the trades?
I grew up in a blue collar family. My dad was an owner operator. And like so many owner operators, he puts in the 12, 14-hour days, 6-7 days a week. Towards the end, before he retired, it was cell phones on him 24/7, that kind of thing. I remember when I was younger, they didn't have cell phones. In fact, he had the brick phone. Do you remember that? The brick phone. And it was like $7 a minute every time the thing rang. But that's what he did. He was so tied to the shop. That's how it worked. And so I got to see a lot of the challenges and the struggles. And I thought growing up that my dad's problem was he didn't have enough business. That's what I always thought the problem was. He didn't have enough business. And that's what kept him from hiring good people and building a team. It's been said that cash solves a lot of problems in business. But if you can't find good people, all the cash in the world is not going to help you. And
agreed.
As I got older, I started a marketing company specifically for the trades to help. It was really home service contractors at that time to generate more business. And there was an HVAC company, and it was July in Phoenix. I don't know if you've ever been to Phoenix in July.
I have.
And they called me up and they said, turn the leads off. We don't want any more leads. I'm like, this is prime time. How is it you don't want people finding you? And they said, we're booking service calls 3 weeks out. So it's 120 outside. I can bake cookies on my dash. And when somebody's air conditioning goes out, we're like, hey, you just got to deal with it for 3 weeks. We'll be there in 3 weeks. And so I called them and I said, what's really the problem? They said, we got 4 empty trucks sitting in the lot. We don't know how to find them. And we keep having texts like they'll show up and then they'll quit in a couple weeks. And I said, well, I have a huge background in corporate recruiting and I understand how recruiting works and interviewing process and hiring. And really, recruiting is a marketing activity. This was my first big aha. Recruiting is a marketing activity. And I was doing marketing at the time. So I said, let me see if I can fill those trucks for you. So 3 weeks later, they called me back and they said, turn leads back on. We filled all the trucks. We got 2 more on order because we got that many techs. I don't know what you did, but it worked. Keep doing it. So I started calling my other clients and I was like, hey, are you struggling with people? Yeah. And at the time, nobody ever thought to talk to me about it because I was a marketing guy. I did lead gen. And they didn't make that connection that recruiting is marketing. So I said, well, this is way more fun. And this is something that there's a need for. So let's do this. And so 9 years ago, I said, that's it. We're going to focus on this piece. And we started with sourcing people. And then we realized that these companies didn't know how to interview. So then we had to teach them how to interview. And then once they made them the offer, they didn't understand how to onboard people. So now we had to work with them on onboarding.
Right.
And then they got them onboarded. Now they didn't know how to keep them. So we had to work with them on engagement. So anyways, we built the Core Fit hiring system. I wrote the book about it, came out in October of 23. And this is all we do now. And I love it. I love helping these companies transform by attracting and hiring the right people.
So I wonder, out of everybody listening, who just heard what you said and said to themselves, I don't need any people. I'm 100% good. I don't need to hire. I don't need to hire, and I don't need to go through any upgrades. We always call them upgrades in our businesses. I don't need any upgrades. And the answer is 0. Like, nobody that I'm aware of, and I've met a lot of business owners in our space, doesn't have challenges with hiring and recruiting.
Yeah. Well, and the thing to remember is life happens. You might be fully staffed. You might be like, I've got trucks on order, but they're not going to be here for a couple of months. I don't need anybody new. And then the service manager goes home and his wife says, I need you to find a job back east because we're moving back to be with my parents. Mm-hmm. And now he's got to come in and say, I'm moving in a month. And if you don't have a process in place or you're not ready for that, now what do? What most of those business owners do, they take their top tech and they say, hey, let's make him the service manager. Yep. And then it's a whole disaster. Right? And now you're one tech short, you're a service manager short, it's a mess. So I'm with you. Yeah.
I think even a lot of business owners, where they miss the mark on recruiting is they do it as a very reactive practice.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's got to be a proactive. You've got to always be looking for talent, because let me know if you agree with this, but your top talent typically isn't actively looking for jobs. They have a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We call those passive job seekers. You know, the most successful recruiting teams in the world are professional sports teams. Right? They're amazing. I mean, people are lining up like, I want to be on the team. I want to be on the team. And most people don't make the cut. Like, we know that there's a very slim chance you're going to play professional sports. But what's the one thing that every professional sports team has? A bench. Because you never know when a guy's going to get sick, get injured, something worse, end up in jail, like whatever. You never know. So what do? They have a bench. And what do they do with those people on the bench? They train them. They coach them. They teach them. And then when they call someone up from the bench, guess what? They're ready to go. And we can do the exact same thing. We actually call it the bench in our process. Building a bench of passive job seekers. Those people that are like, that company looks kind of cool. Maybe I should check it out, but I'm not ready to apply. Like, I don't want to get into an interview process. I don't want to go through that stress. But I want to dip my toe in the waters and see what it's like over there. And we build this bench. And then what we do is we nurture the bench. We market to the bench. We communicate with the bench. And so by the time these people are ready to make a shift, they already know what our culture is like. They already know what it's like to work there. They already know what we do. They already know the leadership team. Like, they've learned all this stuff over 3, 6, 12 months. And so when they're like, Coach, I'm ready to play. Oh, what a cool process it is, because they hit the ground running. They onboard fast. You can do that in your business too. So, I mean, that's that always be recruiting mentality, is build a bench, and that's where you put the people.
So I'd love to dig in a little bit more, not too deep, just staying on a kind of a macro level, but from building a bench, how would you even start to market and communicate with them on a regular basis?
Well, it is kind of there's a big answer to that question. We put a lot of emphasis in what we call the employer brand. This is what people think about you when they see your brand. This is what they know about you. This is how your brand makes them feel. Are you the brand that's got 2.1 stars on Yelp and you've given up on Yelp because Yelp sucks because they don't let you control the reviews? Well, when people see that, they're like, where else are they giving up? Where else are they? If the customers don't like them, why would I like working there? Like, they see this stuff. But when you've got a solid employer brand and you've got 4.6 stars and you're actively engaged in all your reviews and people are talking about you and bragging about you and the local media is picking up news articles about your involvement in the community and the cool things you're finally getting credit for, all of a sudden people are like, oh, I want to know more. And so we have to attract them first. Because if you're not actively hiring for the position, you can't just go post on Indeed. Which, by the way, if you're spending money on the job boards right now, I really want you to question whether or not that's a good investment. Most often it's not. So put the money towards the employer branding. Put it towards that process of being able to attract people to you. And then make sure you got a place to put them.
Do you feel like social media plays a big part in that now?
It can. We used to put a lot of emphasis on social media until it became the thing to do. And now I feel like it's a bunch of people making false promises. You know, they're putting that, it's that social media is known as being the highlight reel. Right? And so we put all our best stuff out there, but we don't put the real stuff out on social media. Because if everybody knew the real us, they wouldn't like us. And so I'm all about authenticity. I'm all about building trust with the job market and the job seekers that are out there and being real. Like if you're a micromanaging type of leader, just own it. Tell people that you micromanage.
They're going to figure it out. Yeah.
They're going to figure it out. We had an electrical contractor years ago, and I sat in and I watched one of his interviews. And he's interviewing an office manager. And about halfway through, he just starts dropping F-bombs, like just out of the blue. I'm like, are you okay? And he finishes the interview and she walks out and he's like, so what'd you think of my interview? Like he was all proud of himself. And I was like, that was interesting. Help me understand this. And he goes, well, we swear a lot around here. You've got to be comfortable with dropping F-bombs. It's natural for me. It's natural for our service manager. You got to be okay with it. I love that. And I love that you gave her a taste of it. But let's do this. Why don't we put some F-bombs in your job ad and then post it? And let him know F in this and F in that and everything else. And he goes white. He's like, you can't do that. I was like, but it's okay to make people feel the way you made that lady feel and blindside them. Why don't we just put it out there? This is who we are. And this is back in the day before Indeed had their policy around this. Like, you can't do it anymore. But we used to put F-bombs in the ads. Be like, hey, this is who we are. If you have a problem with it now, do not apply. And the people that applied are like, heck yeah, these are my people. And that's what we want. We want that authenticity. But it's harder to do that nowadays than it used to be.
Yeah, I know with our service business, we have a lot of people that come in and the first thing they talk about is checking us out on social media. And
yeah.
It's such an easy way to do it. I mean, I know there's a much bigger process, but that's just like a very simple way of showing, I guess, your highlight reel. Obviously, again, how the language that you speak in the building obviously is important, and you want to make sure that that's translated before someone walks in the door and becomes wildly offended at what's going on.
And social media is part of how you establish a reputation. It is part of your brand. And I absolutely believe that you should be controlling what's being said. Don't let it happen to you, because if you're not controlling the narrative, someone else is.
Right.
So if you're not active on social media, someone else is active on social media talking about you. So be active on it. Make sure you put it out there. But I'm all about authenticity. We had another HVAC contractor who I was like, hey, you've got an email list of like 30,000 people, customers. I go, why don't you ask them if any of them have a friend or a family member who's an HVAC tech that's looking for a job? And they freaked out. We can't let our customers know that we're hiring. We can't let them know that we don't have enough people. They're not going to call us because they're going to think we're not going to get to them in time. And my response was, you're already not getting to them in time because you're already short-staffed. Like, why blindside them? Let them know. And then think about, now you're creating advocates for your brand by tapping into your customers who, these people want you to succeed. Because guess what? When my wife calls you, she wants to know that you got a tech on standby that'll be here this afternoon.
Right.
If she can help be a part of that solution, she's going to help be a part of that solution.
So one of the things you guys talk about that I think is an interesting concept, and I'd love to dig in a little bit to it, is do your team member, and I may hack this whole thing, but do your team have a best friend at work? So tell us a little bit about what does that mean?
Well, let me tell you where that comes from first. So that's not my question. So Gallup is this international think tank for employees and engagement and employee relations and everything else. And they're a consultancy. And they developed a program called the Q12. It's a survey. It's 12 yes or no questions. And you give it to your team. It's 12 yes or no questions. And then based on how they respond, the results come back and say, this is how likely your team members are to be engaged. And we all want engaged employees because engaged employees are more profitable, they're more productive, they take better care of the customers. We want engagement. So that's where the Q12 came from. And after doing this hundreds of thousands of times, Gallup found that there's one question that if people say yes to it, they're 6 times more likely to be engaged. And it's, do I have a best friend at work? And so when we start looking at onboarding and the way that teams work together and creating opportunities for friendship, we want to be very intentional about letting people have an opportunity to create a good friend at work. Now, this may not be your best friend in life. This is your best friend at work. Someone that they know what's going on in your world. Maybe you go out for happy hour. Maybe your families get together a couple times a year or something like that. Doesn't mean they're your best friend, know all your deepest, darkest secrets. But there's someone that you enjoy coming to work to see and spend time with. And I get it. If you run a team of techs that are out behind a windshield all day, it might be tough. But they can still call each other. They can still text. They can still share like, oh my gosh, you should see this rat's nest. And they're like sharing it with their friends, right? But when we create that environment where people can be friends with the people they work with, they're much more likely to get to work on time, be engaged, be productive, but also stay longer. Because nobody wants to quit if they're going to give up their best friend. So it's very impactful to go into that process of thinking about your team and creating that opportunity for friendship.
So what do you think, give one example or maybe two of how you can even create an environment for that to be, or is it a way that you can, as the employer, set up a world where that happens a little more organically?
Well, I think the first thing to do is recognize that we don't just have employees. We don't just have workers. We don't just have a set of hands. There's a human being with hopes, goals, and dreams tied to that. And there's a couple of different ways, but I'll give you one that we really like, is when you're onboarding someone new, instead of focusing the onboard exclusively on here's how we use our tools, here's how we update our CRM, here's how we talk to our customers, here's how we go into someone's home, which is what most onboarding is, right? We ride along with a guy for 2 weeks, he shows us the ropes and we're done. What if we took a step back and I said, hey, Justin, I'm so excited to have you on the team. You know what? I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. We have this process called the fuzzy file. See, I know things about you. We barely know each other, but I know things. I can infer things. I can assume things that you have a love for the trades. But that's all I know. Everything else beyond that is very fuzzy. I can make some assumptions and stuff like that. But imagine that I had a set of questions that I could ask you when you first started working with me to fill in some of those fuzzy gaps. You know, tell me about your family. Tell me about your kids. Tell me about your hobbies. Tell me about the things that you love doing. Tell me about a thing or two that's on your bucket list. And then I take that information And I go back and I look at all the rest of the team and I go, whoa, look at this. Justin and John have the exact same thing on their bucket list. I'm going to make sure that maybe that should be Justin's mentor or the go-to person while he's onboarding. Because if they have the same thing on their bucket list, maybe there's other things they can connect on. And
That's
all
great.
I had to do was ask a few questions and then create the opportunity for you two to connect.
That's fantastic. So obviously you have a passion for the recruiting process, and not only that, but the onboarding, because the truth is, you said something earlier about riding in a truck for 2 weeks and then you're off on your own. I would say that a lot of companies don't even do that. A lot of them don't even do the 2 weeks in a truck. They don't.
I know, I was being generous.
Right. I know you were. But so how is it that, well, let me back up. How does Core Matters help businesses through this choppy water? Because it is choppy, right? And again, most companies are hiring at a reactionary point. Oh my gosh, we got an empty truck. We got to get it filled so we can go, generate revenue. And how do we do that? So there's that express lane a lot of times that companies put in, and they justify to themselves that, well, they have to do it, when really all they're doing is they're going to cost themselves more money if they do it that way versus what you're talking about. But how do you guys help businesses navigate through that?
So I'll use an analogy. Hopefully it doesn't fall flat with your listeners, but I love fishing. I'm a big fisherman. And there are some things like I'm learning how to fly fish. Well, that was way harder than I thought it would be. And imagine, though, for a second that I was convinced that the best way for me to sustain myself long-term was to learn how to fish. I could go out, I could catch what I needed when I needed to catch it, come home, cook it up, and I could eat. Well, if I called up a guide and I said, hey, I want to learn how to fish, the first thing he's going to say is, oh, tell me about your experience fishing. I don't have any. And he hears my stomach grumbling, and I'm like, dude, I need to catch something soon or I'm going to be, And think about this from a recruiting perspective. Like, I got to get a guy soon because that truck's sitting there costing me $30K a month, not putting anything in it. And the first thing he's going to do is say, okay, let's go out. I'm going to bait up everything. I'm going to put everything together. I'm going to show you the best fishing holes, and we're going to go catch something. I call that stop the bleeding, right? Put some fish in my stomach, and all of a sudden, I'll be a lot more attentive with the next lesson. We do the same thing when someone engages with us. We stop the bleeding. Tell me the 2 or 3 things that are keeping you up at night. I've got 3 empty trucks. I got a dispatcher that I got to replace. I've got this. Great. We are going to put all of our emphasis and focus on helping you fix that today. Whether that means we're writing job ads or we're processing some applications for you or helping you screen, we're going to stop the bleeding. And once that's done and you've got those trucks filled, now you're going to be a lot more attentive to what's the next step. And we're going to sit down and we're going to figure out, what are your goals? What are your 1 and 3 year goals? Because that's what we're going to put our emphasis on. Solving today's problems, tomorrow's problems. I'm not worried about solving 10-year problems. We'll worry about those later. And then we're going to put together a plan for you and say, this is what we need to learn. This is what we need to build. This is what we need to implement. This is who we need to train. This is how we need to train them. And my belief is I want to teach you to fish. I want to put all the processes and systems in place. We'll take care of building it for you so you don't have to worry about that. But then we're going to train your team how to use them. We're going to train your team how to troubleshoot them. We're going to train the team to take off some of the in the business stuff that you're working on as the owner. We're going to train the team how to take some of that off your plate so that you're not the bottleneck anymore and free yourself up. We have one client, he's been working with us for a few years. He goes, anytime I work less than 40 hours a week, he goes, I feel like I'm stealing. It's weird. And I know there's people listening like, 40 hours, I passed that on Tuesday.
Yeah. We call that Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's really our goal, is how do we teach you to do this? We'll implement the systems and the process, we'll build it out for you, but then we're going to train you and your team so that you can manage this on your own and not be beholden to recruiters or staffing agencies or the job boards or any of this other stuff, and help you systematize and automate this process.
So I love that analogy. And I will tell you, I live on the Gulf of Mexico, so I do love to fish.
Love it.
But let me take that back. I don't like fishing. I love catching.
Yes.
and if I go out on my own, I'm fishing. if I invest in a captain, in a crew, in a boat that knows where to go, now I'm catching.
Yeah.
And that is it's such a better ROI on my time and my energy and my excitement, because now I'm dropping in and pulling up. So
I love it.
So yeah, I think that's a great analogy, Ryan. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to go deep sea fishing a couple years ago off the Keys, and we went out for some mahi. And, I tell the story, we drove around for 6 hours. We just drove around for 6 hours. I mean, the storm would roll in, it'd mess everything up, and then the bait fish would be going in one direction. We didn't find any of the birds, and like this whole thing. And the captain's teaching me the whole time, and I'm learning, I'm loving it. 6 hours, I just sweat. It was hot. We caught nothing. And then we finally got one on, and we caught 12 fish in 15 minutes, and it was the highlight of the day, and it was so worth the 6 hour investment. But you're right, it's the catching part. But sometimes we've got to invest the 6 hours to make sure that we're doing the right things, putting their efforts in the right place. And then when we do catch, game on.
Fantastic. So Ryan, how can anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you and find out more about how Core Matters can help them in their business? Yeah.
So my website's corematters.com. And they can learn all about our process and our systems. But I got a free offer for your listeners right now. As you mentioned, I have a book called Hire Better People Faster. And if they're on that website, there is a link. Actually, if they go to corematters.com/free book, it'll take them right there. And I ask for a little bit of help with shipping and handling, but I'll mail them a signed copy of my book so they can learn all about this process. And the book was designed for them to be able to implement it themselves. Like, you don't have to hire me to do this stuff. Makes it easier. It goes a lot faster. But I wanted to make sure that book was valuable because I wanted to put it in the hands of people like my dad who were struggling and needed some help.
That's fantastic. So any closing thoughts for the listeners before we jump off here?
One of the things that I think a lot of people miss, it's super easy. If you want help finding the best people, attracting the best people, hiring the best people, you have an amazing group of people you're already surrounded with. Leverage them. Ask your team, who do they know? Ask for referrals. Ask them how you could have improved the process. Ask them what you can do to engage them, to retain them, to meet. Ask your people. Sit down and have casual conversation with them. Take them to lunch, take them to breakfast, whatever, and say, hey, I need help solving this problem. I know your missus doesn't like all the OT you're putting in. I mean, I'm sure she likes it when the check comes in, but she doesn't like you missing the kids' games. You'd put less OT in if we had more people. And I know you can help with that. So instead of burning your people out, ask them for help.
Great advice. Great advice. And Ryan, appreciate you coming and hanging out with us today. That was really good information. And again, check out corematters.com/free book. Get a copy of the book and get in touch with Ryan and his team and let them teach you how to catch, and make sure you get those trucks filled and crush this summer and the summers beyond this summer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin.
You've been listening to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Information is useless if not applied. So take what you've learned and go and implement it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Freedom Blueprint for Home Services and hit the website at www.freedomblueprintpodcast.com. See you next time.